Hello and welcome back to the Weekly Gaming News Show. I'm your host Sony, and this week we cover PUBG's new map that features a new underground cave system, AMD's Ryzen Gen 2 launch, and all the early info we've been able to gather from it. But first we cover a Monster Hunter game on the PC coming to open beta. Now I know what I just said was kind of clickbaity, and it's mostly because we're talking about Dauntless here, and if you haven't heard of Dauntless, we've kind of spoken about it in the past. It's essentially a Monster Hunter clone, which is you go out with certain weapons and which give you certain weapon move types, and you go out and hunt down these monsters to attain their leather, scales, bones, whatever you need to craft better armor and weapons to go hunt down more monsters, which is essentially the premise of Monster Hunter. But Monster Hunter Worlds has actually done it slightly differently this time. But what Dauntless does is that it brings the old Monster Hunter games to the PC for free. Now this is releasing in free-to-play. It's gonna have a whole free-to-play market scheme, which means microtransactions. Hopefully that only means that they're just gonna be cosmetic, and even if they were actually impactful on the gameplay, I don't think it would matter that much because there's no form of PvP in the game. But I feel like the community around the game and outside of the community they won't take it too great. So it begs the question, when this game releases, will the people who were waiting for this game for a Monster Hunter replacement, are they still gonna pick up this game? And who knows? I've not been able to speak to a few of my friends who play Monster Hunter. They currently are playing Monster Hunter Worlds on the PlayStation 4, and although they love the game, there are a few issues with it. They keep saying that, there's this, there's that, there's no high rank, things like that. And honestly, as much as they love the game, they can't continue playing it as much as they played the old Monster Hunter games. So I'm wondering to see, I'm curious to see if this is going to be a healthy replacement for that. And if not, how is Monster Hunter Worlds going to be implemented in the PC that not only works for the hardcore players and the casual players, but also work for people who are going to be playing the game on the PC? Because although Monster Hunter hasn't had any competition, they kind of got it, especially when this game is free to play, and Monster Hunter Worlds is, I think, £40 to £50 still, which is respectable. It is a big game, but it could be a little bigger, some people are saying. And before I move on, I'd also like to ask you, how do you feel about Dauntless? Do you feel like it's just a poor man's Monster Hunter, or do you think it's actually a worthy successor, if not competitor, to the game series? I'm curious to see what you guys say down below. Moving swiftly ahead to another week full of PUBG. You cannot go a week without a Battle Royale game within the news. As sad as that is to say, we've got something interesting for you guys next week, so stay tuned for that. But moving back to PUBG, they've now kind of teased and released the concepts for a new map, aptly named the Savage map. It's a smaller map, it's another 4km by 4km map, and it's heavily dependent on CQC combat, especially when it's got a cave system. This cave system is based off of the real Phra Nakhon cave system in Thailand. I hope I didn't butcher that, I feel like I did. And right now they say that it needs a bit more work, and in the teaser trailer that we saw, there was a few textures missing from things, but hopefully they're able to get it sorted out very quickly, and do expect it on the test servers, since they did say that they will be publishing it to the test servers very soon. Now last but certainly not least, because this one is huge, not only because of the incremental changes that AMD has been proposing, but also because I've got a lot of things to cover. So if this part gets long-winded and boring, please try to watch to the end, because if you're a PC gamer and a tech nut like me, this is going to be really interesting to you. So, as we know, during the week, AMD launched their second generation of Ryzen CPUs. This isn't Ryzen 2, keep that in mind. People are still expecting that within 2019 or 2020. So just take note that Zen 2 is not here yet. But Ryzen Gen 2 is here, and you can buy it on the AMD website, and they're not that much expensive than their first generation counterparts. The price difference ranging from £20 to £50 differences between the first and second generation. Now, what CPUs am I talking about? Well, we've got 2 for the Ryzen 5 lineup and 2 for the Ryzen 7 lineup. That includes the R5 2600 and the 2600X, and the R7 2700 and the 2700X. Now, there are rumors going around that you could push between 4.1 to 4.5 GHz with these CPUs, and AMD weren't exactly backing up those claims, but they were definitely standing behind them with a smile on their face. What we expected is more or less what we've seen, and a bit better, since now with the second generation of CPUs you can expect much higher overclocks at stable performance as well, better single and multi-core and multi-threaded performance, much better gaming and workstation performance, more for the workstation than the gaming. I'll get onto that a little more later. And the new StoreMi, which not only boosts hard drive performance but also SSD and NVMe performance. And the way that the StoreMi works is that it if you got a hard drive with Windows installed on it, you can boost the performance of Windows itself on that hard drive with nothing else on it as well. So you can get near SSD-like performance off of Windows, off of a hard drive, which is a sound investment actually, especially if you're on a budget build and you're trying to build for the future so you can upgrade later on. So well done AMD for looking out for the consumer and the future of the consumer as well. GG. GG stands for good game, by the way. But I would get more into the StoreMi, but it gets into a lot of technical jargon that I can't exactly simplify down too much. So link in the description to everything that you need to know about StoreMi, and also everything to do with Ryzen Gen 2 and its launch. Also, I recommend going through YouTubers like Hardware Canucks, Linus Tech Tips, Jay's 2 Cents, Paul's Hardware, people like that, just to get a sense of what the changes are, how and why, especially with different types of rigs. Now, is first gen Ryzen CPUs worthless? No, not at all. If you see some of the benchmarks, yes, there's a lot better single core and multi-core performance than even the 1800X with the 2700X. But this is not a replacement. If anything, you can see this as a Kaby Lake of Ryzen. They've just made slight changes, reduced the nanometer FinFET design to 12 nanometers instead of 14 nanometers, and that's essentially helped with higher TDPs, better boost performance, better overclocking, while also staying within the same TDPs or the power deliverance to the CPU as the other ones, with the exception of the 2700K. So would I recommend this to somebody who already has a Ryzen computer? If you already have something like a 1700 or a 1800, you're not going to notice that much of a difference, especially if you're playing video games. If anything, you'll see at the most, on games like CSGO, League of Legends, things like that, you'll see a 60 frames a second increase. But if you're running something like a 1070 or 1080, you're already getting incredibly high frame rates anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. But if you're looking towards 3D rendering, heavy video and picture editing, or using the entire Adobe suite that includes Premiere Pro, Photoshop, After Effects, because I know that's kind of heavy on the CPU and RAM, these CPUs may help, and I'd more direct you towards those reasons for buying these CPUs. But if you are looking for an upgrade from, let's say, a 1600 or 1600X, and you really want a huge upgrade, make sure that your motherboard says Ryzen 2000 certified already, because that means essentially all you need to do is a little BIOS update, and your motherboard will now support that CPU. But if your motherboard doesn't say that, then you're gonna have to buy a new motherboard, which the X470 motherboards are readily available now. You can buy them, but I'm not quite sure on the pricing. I'll check that actually now. So looking between MSI, Aorus, and Asus, the prices seem to be the same with their X370 and B350, between I think 70 to like 150 from what I've seen right now. Obviously prices can go a lot further up, because if you want better overclocking, you're gonna have to get a more expensive motherboard. But for now, these CPUs are, I'd say, mostly targeted towards people who just want a slightly better boost performance out of their workstation rig. I definitely wouldn't recommend these to you if you already have a Ryzen CPU. Speaking of overclocking, somebody actually was able to push the Ryzen 27X to 6 gigahertz, and right now he holds the record for that. I know it's not as crazy as the Intel's 7 gigahertz overclock somebody once did, I think back in 2016, I think, or 17, I don't remember, but 6 gigahertz for AMD is insane. It's crazy. 5 gigahertz is more than enough for anybody, but to be able to push it to 6 gigahertz, that's crazy. That's impressive of all things. I'm not sure what its benchmarks is at all, but I imagine it's insane. And if anything, I think it could probably rival a Threadripper. I'm just speculating. This is just me spitballing here, but hey, a man can dream, right? And that's been it for this week's gaming news show. If you liked it, leave a like. Tell me what you think about all the things that we covered in the comments below, and all the links to the topics that we talked about on the description down below. Make sure to subscribe for next week, and I'll see you guys in the next one.